Welcome to the Hardtech Podcast.
And everybody, welcome back to the Hardtech Podcast. I'm your host, DeAndre Harakas, with my usual suspect, Grant Chapman.
Hi, everybody, and we actually have friends in person today.
And we have friends in person today from Bailout Systems, Michael and Alex. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks for making the trip down from Cincinnati, right?
Yep.
And I'm assuming the drive wasn't too bad and all that.
No, it's close. You guys are close neighbors.
That's awesome. Well, I'm excited to dive into. We've got the product right here. And they've been working on it for over a decade.
Yeah.
And so Michael would love to get an overview of the company and where you guys are at now.
Yeah. So Bailout Systems started like most companies out of a problem. My best friend Archie, we were in the Navy together, and he got out of the Navy, became a Covington, Kentucky firefighter. And what he was going through training was related to this story to me called Black Sunday, where a whole team of firefighters in New York City jumped 4 stories out of a building, and 3 of those firefighters passed away and 3 sustained lifelong injuries. And I met one of those firefighters. The story's kind of horrific, but we had the audio version of that, of them just one after the other jumping out of that building. And he told me at the time I was going to the University of Cincinnati for industrial design. He's like, instead of designing toasters and stuff like that, he's like, why don't you take your experience and develop something that we can actually use and carry in the fire seat? Because my first thing was like, where was their rope? And they left all the stuff in the truck because it's heavy. They got enough stuff to carry. And so over Christmas holiday, 2013, I started tinkering around in the basement of DAP department, or it was Design, Art, Architecture, Planning, the College of DAP at UC, and just started trying to figure out how do you, and I knew you had to get rid of the heavy rope. So the first thing, how do you create friction on a small rope? And so I went down a bunch of rabbit holes, finally stumbled on the technology that we have now. And I was so young in that program, my first prototype was a wooden box. And I took it to Covington, Kentucky, where they had a drop zone, and these guys would like literally jump off the side of a building, and it actually worked. And so we got video of that, and then, it was funny because the part of the story I didn't tell is I went to DAP. I was 37, fresh out of the Navy, and it was like watching Billy Madison. It's like, there's me, and I'm taking notes from these kids. Like I'm
and they're
learning.
fresh out of high school at this point because they're going, this is their freshman year of school, your freshman year of school. There's just, 10 or 15 years in between you guys?
Yeah, and I mean, these kids are brilliant that go into this program, and then there's me, and I'm like, oh, man. And so I'm like taking notes, and then so my whole goal of going to DAP started when I was stationed in Hawaii. I wanted to learn how to make products. And so on my break, I went back to Cincinnati, went to UC, and I heard DAP was a program. And I was like, sign me up for that. And they're like, well, hold on, you got to get in this program. And so I was like, I'll get in. And I applied, and I think magically they let me in because I was like military background.
Yeah.
Because these kids are, bred for this stuff. So there's me and these brilliant kids, and I'm like literally learning from people half my age and taking notes.
And they've been sketching since they were in middle school and doing all the the background skills of industrial design.
Yeah.
Right? Like making mood boards for themselves.
That's exactly right.
And you're like from the military, like, how do I draw a stick figure again?
Exactly. Exactly. And so, but it was funny. So then the business college, they had this pitch competition. And so I joined this club called Bearcat Launchpad. And again, I'm standing up pitching, and these 19-year-old kids are like, Ragsdale, like nobody cares about the technology. It's like, what's the benefit to the end user? And so I'm, again, taking notes. Well, fast forward, I end up winning this pitch competition, get $5,000, and I take all the money and put it into prototyping. And then I kept doing that and kept winning pitch competitions.
And I want to say how important this is. It's one of the pitch competitions have fallen out of favor in the last 5 or 10 years. Like in 2010 to 2015, they were like all the rage.
Yeah.
And they've started to go away because VC didn't they had to give someone the money at the end. They wanted to choose whether or not to invest.
Right.
We need more economic development,
Yeah.
like city, state, like the altruism side of economic development, to go into these low-dollar pitch competitions because it's the spark that'll start the ember that starts the fire of a company.
That's exactly right.
We need more of this. What you just experienced needs to happen more often.
Of the $1.3 million I've raised to date, I'd say $400,000 of that is from pitching competitions.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a lot of money.
And
you
is
know?
this all like non-dilutive? Is some of it it's also an investment from the VC, or is this all like almost grant-based?
All that is grant-based.
Yeah,
So
a lot
it's
of it
non.
is.
A lot of my money that I've raised has been non-dilutive.
That's
but
incredible.
It was through the pitch competitions, and yeah, and I was surrounded by kids that understood this stuff, and that's what amazes me. And I was coached by kids, and that's how I started winning all this money. And then the university saw what I was doing, and they got involved. They're like, let's let this guy do what he wants. And so instead of going for a co-op in DAP, like most people do, we did a booth here in Indiana at the FDIC conference, the largest fire conference probably in the world.
It is huge. Hotels sell out for
Yeah.
it's like the 500 all over again.
It's crazy.
But the firefighter conference is enormous here.
Yeah, it's probably bigger than the race.
I think it's bigger than PRI, the Performance Racing Industry Show. That's like an automotive expo here in India. Like I think the firefighters convention is bigger.
Yeah, it was like 65,000 firefighters from all over the world.
Wow.
And we had a booth, and our advisor, she's like, you guys better not be goofing off this summer. So we came back with a patent. We had a $10,000 booth at the FDIC conference. 3M came and visited us in Cincinnati because they're like, you guys are on to something. This is like the next thing, you know. And so that kind of launched everything, kind of stemmed from there, and that was the beginning of all this.
That's such a great
So-
story. I mean, I love that how you talk so like lovingly about your college experience, right?
Yeah,
Which
it was amazing.
which it tells you that they're doing something right. Again, I'm a Boilermaker, Purdue through and through, but very rarely do I talk about Purdue's education lovingly, but I talk about their freedom in programs, what you're talking about, the pitch
Yeah.
competition and the other things. Like what Purdue enabled me and my cohort, because Glassboard is effectively a Purdue startup. Drew and I started this while we were still enrolled, like chasing the dreams of things we were doing at Purdue, and that became Glassboard. So I love meeting someone else where your school environment enabled you to do the thing.
You sound like you had the same exact experience. That's what I loved about DAP. It was like the military. Military, all that matters is, do you perform or do you not? And when I got to DAP, nobody cared about your grades. Like it was all what your portfolio looked like. So, and I was like, man, this is great. This isn't like typical college where, you know, the person that gets straight
highest
A's
score.
gets the job. No, it's the person with the best portfolio.
Well, say that louder for the kids in the back. All you engineers that are worried about your GPA, please just build a portfolio from the day you're in middle school to the day
Yes.
you never stop building a portfolio. Take photos of what you do, put it into a Google Slides or PowerPoint doc, and write 3 or 4 bullet points about every project. That's
it.
Save it and just build it. It doesn't even have to be like from ID portfolios have to look good.
Right.
Yeah.
Engineering ones, they don't. They just got to sound cool.
Exactly. You could, an engineer can just get a ID student to do it for him, you know?
And
then-
one day you can make AI make this look pretty. And then
Exactly.
let her iterate.
Right,
Exactly.
right.
But I love that because that's what matters, and nobody really. I mean, if you build something, it's like I don't care if you got straight A's. Look, this person took something to market.
That's right. And so you start off, that's early days. And then whenever you and I were first on the call, you made this like what seemed almost like a textbook grade pivot in the world of hardware. So kind of curious on like that journey as well.
Yeah. And the reason why I had such a heart for when I heard that mess or the emergency call when the firefighters jumped out of that building is when I was 19, I fell off a cliff at Red River Gorge rappelling. Fell 100 feet, was in a coma, had to learn to walk again, hospitalized for 3 months. And so I knew, and then when I talked to one of the firefighters that was there that day that made the decision to jump, that is what spawned all this. But I think we made the pivot. Not I think we did because it's a much easier route and a lot less money I have to raise to get to market by going after the arbor market first.
And by arbor market, we're lowering parts of trees
Yes.
as they're cut off instead of
Yep.
people from the trees.
Exactly. So it's a lot easier path to market to get there. And then once we get there, then we will have the funds and the revenue to be able to do these other products because we have probably 20 products that we want to eventually make for like 6 different markets
From the same core-based
from the
technology.
same
Yeah.
core technology. So all the engineering that we're doing now is going to feed all the information we need to make these other products.
When it's one of those things that like it's so much easier to go to market in a beachhead is what the VC term is going to say. What's your narrow beachhead that doesn't cost you a lot to break into? You're solving a pain point that exists, but it's not trying to boil the ocean.
Exactly.
Right? How do we go to a pointed thing that we can afford to get done to prove that there's a product market fit or a technical solution market fit?
Right.
And I think this is what Arbor is for you guys. Instead of having to say, hey, our device works 1,000% of the time because I can't afford to drop a firefighter off a building. If we work 99 out of 100 times and one tree branch goes down too fast, probably okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the certification is a lot easier for a device for the tree industry rather than like the fire. It's a NFPA, and there's a lot of hurdles to go through there. We could get it, but it costs a lot more money.
There's a lot of improvements to be made. I mean, the arbor industry is just such a cowboy industry and it's so dangerous. It's 15 times the fatality rate of any other job.
Yeah.
Is that even over my other favorite dangerous job? It's crop dusting. I didn't realize how dangerous that job was.
true.
Not sure.
It's crazy.
Really?
My favorite thing is because, again, if you're an engineer,
The chemicals or what?
no, do you know how fast they have to fly because they're so heavy? Their actual ground speed to stall is like 125 or 150 miles an hour, or they stall.
Oh, dear.
So you're flying like 15 feet over the corn at, at Mach whatever, right?
125 miles an hour.
Actually fast.
Oh my God.
And there's always power lines at the end of the field.
Oh, wow.
Right, or a forest, right? Or
Right,
but you
right.
have to spray up to the edge of the field before you pull up, and that's what makes this industry so dangerous.
Oh,
is
that's
that
crazy.
like I'm like, why is this so hard? Planes can fly, like it's not that hard. Like no, you have to go fast because you're so heavy.
And you have to go low too. Yeah,
And-
that's
and-
funny.
Yeah, so but sorry, digress from dangerous industry jobs that we're all designing for. That any amount of safety improvement is a huge improvement.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And another unique thing about this industry that drew me there first was they'll buy stuff with a promised delivery later. So I can actually
interesting.
use the money to actually
some
get
pre-orders.
them, their product. So the that I think really that's why we're only raising the 600,000 that we need to get everything to market, rather than a much you would need much more in the fire industry to get it there.
I'd imagine it's also more B2B, right? As
Yeah.
opposed to going more direct to consumer.
Well, actually, the arbor is both. We have an industry leader that's interested in what we have, and they've offered to sell it on their website.
Like on their platform.
Yeah. And then, but at the beginning, it's going to be me going like I did yesterday. I drove
Conferences.
all the way to Michigan, spent a whole day dropping a tree with the whole team, and it's going to be like that. We're doing it in Cincinnati. We got a guy in Cleveland. He's over all the Cleveland parks. He wants to get a hold of this. So it's in the beginning. It's going to be a lot of B2C.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a one hell of a go to market. One call close.
That's
yeah.
right.
You go do live demo. One call close.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
It's going to be rigorous at first, but the guy that we went to see yesterday, he's a leader in the industry, and it's get it in front of people like that if they sign off on it, then you get maybe traction a little faster than you would have just like
Yeah, I mean,
going from one team to the next. That takes forever.
I
That's
think
not
it's
a good-
intuitive, and I think from a go-to-market side of things, like founder-led sales, like truly going through the experience, having the boots on the ground conversations with those customers to know like what is the proper sales infrastructure you need to build, so that you can then multiply yourself, over and over again. You're going to learn so much by just having those intimate conversations, and you're also just talking to customers, which is also like a best practice of any startup too.
That's exactly right. And I think a lot of mistakes that startups make is they'll hire like a VP of marketing or sales. It's like, no, you have to sell first. Then you can articulate that better to someone that you eventually hire. But I don't know. I think that's a big mistake for founders to put that off on somebody else. You have to, in the beginning, get to know your customer.
Well, and it's this thing that is similar to engineering. At the beginning, you have to do things that don't scale, right? You have to do it the hard way first. Like when you're making product at low volume, you use a completely different manufacturing process than when you make 10,000 of them.
That's exactly
when
right.
you're doing your first sales as a founder, you are selling. They're trusting you, and they're buying your dream, not the product in front of them.
That's right.
And as you start to build definition in your product and definition in your value stream and your market, and you'll start noticing the script that you run over and over and over again, you'll then bring on a sales team and realize they can use 30% of that script.
Sure.
Right, because founders sell differently than a sales team.
Right.
When they go to marketing, like it's an entirely different sale. But you need to know what the founder did that worked every time
Right.
to build a great, basically, playbook and roadmap for. I mean, DeAndre, you and I worked on this. Like you jumped in and helped me transition from founder-led sales to both of us selling different ways. And you followed me around for 2 weeks and wrote down all the things that you liked that I did, and then hit me with bricks and all the things I did poorly. But we had to figure out what things overlapped as a Venn diagram and what was the blue ocean that you could go do that I couldn't.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I think that's so powerful.
And it's nuanced. Like this industry, we learned yesterday, we don't use our technology's hands-free, but we learned you don't tell an arborist hands-free because they always want their hand on the line.
Sure.
Oh, they want control.
They don't want to hear hands free, but they don't want to use their hands either.
Right.
Once they get used to it, they're like, oh, why am I holding this rope?
Right.
That's awesome.
But when I led with that, you would always get this resistance of like, yeah, what do you mean? Like I don't ever take my hand off the line.
Like friction. Just,
Right.
You know, pun intended for the device
Yeah.
we're talking about.
Exactly.
I think he said it perfectly. As doing founder-led sales, you start to understand what those sales frictions are.
Yes.
And just like Grant mentioned, once you start to really articulate those, you understand them, you have the pitch. Even though like whenever you hand it off to a sales team or your first sales hire, he
Right.
might implement like a different aspect of it, but those core like pitches and
Right.
angles and things that really resonate with that customer are absolutely going to exist, and that's what leads to the growth there. So I think kudos to you for absolutely embodying like I'm going to go lead the sales effort until we get to the point where we feel like this is true product market fit.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just like user design. Like you think you know what the user needs until you
Put it in front of a user.
until you walk in their shoes. You know, I always make the mistake initially. I was like, oh, I know what these people need. It's like, no, you don't. Spend time with these people and listen to what they're telling you their pain point is, not what you think it is. And then you start to really learn, like, okay, this is why people are looking at me weird when I'm speaking this way, because I'm not speaking their language. So
It is wild to see how no plans rise first contact with the client. Absolutely none. Like it's like all the engineers have their best laid plans. This is how the device is going to save everybody and do this crazy new thing. And you go to use like, don't use it like that.
Yeah.
And like, this is how I'm going to use it. Don't use it like that. And you have to engineer products in ways people either can't use wrong or are so obviously in a delight to use correct, they'll do it the way you want them to.
Right.
intuitive.
Yeah. So either Michael or Alex, to the degree to which you guys can share about just the core technology, this is the Hardtech Podcast, so we're excited about this thing right here. So I'm curious, like, what is the core aspects of the product you can share, and what's like the core innovations you guys have really discovered?
I'm gonna let the engineer take this one.
Yeah, so I mean, like we were talking about earlier, all the climbing devices, and this goes for arborist devices too, all these rope devices, a user has their hand on the rope, and that's the input to that system, and then a friction element allows them to be strong enough to achieve what they're trying to achieve. So to try to reduce error or to try to make things easier is we want to basically replace the brake hand of the user. So that's how Michael came up with the eddy current technology, which is like a viscous element. If you ever dropped a magnet down a copper pipe, it doesn't fall down the pipe quickly; it falls slowly. Anytime you change a magnetic field around a conductor, you're gonna get opposing magnetic fields. So basically, the faster we spin it, the more it resists, and that replaces the need for a brake hand, and we still use the friction to amplify that effect.
Right. So basically, you're loading down the rope with tension from the eddy current. Right. So
Yep.
as the flywheel's spinning faster and faster, you're moving a magnet near a metal plate, and that's forcing electrons to race through the metal, and they're bumping into the metal, so it's creating heat.
Yep.
It's really like electrons hitting atoms as far as friction goes. But that isn't absorbing 100% of the energy.
It's about the same amount of absorption as like your hand would be if it was just on a rope.
If you're like just belaying when
You're
you're
just-
like rock climbing.
Yeah.
Right. So I think to like talk to user or for everyone listening that can't see our hands, it's one of
Right,
those things
right.
that when you're rappelling down a rope, you are letting a little bit of the rope go through friction in your hands.
Yep.
But it's wrapped around this loop basically on your carabiner, and that friction is what's absorbing the energy.
Exactly.
Right. And so that is what you guys are doing. That most of the energy is going into the rope and heat, but you have a 10 or 20% input from your eddy current technology.
Exactly.
And the beauty is, if you would just let this free fall, like the eddy current free fall, it would spin up to a certain speed, but because its torque or resistance will increase with speed, you'll eventually steady state.
You hit a terminal velocity.
That's super neat. So it's going to stay at that terminal velocity until you touch the ground.
Yep.
Yeah, another fun thing too, and this is like the nuance of what we were talking about before, is I thought it was going to be the hands-free, that they could lower a limb hands-free. Well, what we're learning every time we go out with these guys is they like the soft catch. So it's not. They said the hands-free is not necessarily what we like. It's the fact that when we cut the limb, especially negative rigging, I can let you explain
Yeah,
that.
there's instances when you're cutting a tree limb, like a very heavy tree limb, and it has to free fall for 5 or 6 feet before the rope can catch it. And now we have this tremendous amount of energy that we need to disperse quickly and smoothly.
Oh,
And
so you don't impulse it.
If it impulses at shock loads, it'll shake and it can injure the climber because these tree trunks can shake violently enough to cause injury or to cause even the tree could break.
Oh, so this is interesting. So basically, this is like bungee jumping.
Yeah.
Right. So if you bungee jump with a
Yes.
rope that's not a bungee cord, you break every
You break
bone
your
in
back,
spine.
yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas with this, you could jump off. I could jump off a bridge with a rope around my ankles attached to your device, and I wouldn't hit tension right away. I would slowly work into
Right.
the tension because the eddy current would relatively slowly.
That's exactly
Well,
right.
The climbers figured out they got stretchy ropes where they can do that.
Right.
Arborists can't use stretchy ropes most of the time because they need to avoid hitting something at the bottom, so they use
That's a
almost
good
completely
point.
static ropes. So it becomes even more important to use a proper belay technique on these catches, and our technology allows that to be much easier and much lower skill of cap.
That's what I was saying,
A
yeah.
fresh ground guy can now do a good catch because this technology is helping him.
Yeah, because it's basically it's like a mechanical computer. It is programmed to increase load up until its steady state limit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Like this isn't like human has to slowly start grabbing the rope. But again, if you wait too long, that limb's gonna have way too much velocity.
Yeah.
Never gonna be able to slow that down without burning your hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the same in rock climbing and lead climbing. There's everybody in both industries call it a hard catch. So if I fall 10 feet before, I get a catch, and that person has their hand grasped on that line, or doesn't jump up to allow that cushion, I'll slam into the rock, and a lot of times you break ankles and legs that way. Well, arbor's the same way. If that guy just wrenches the rope when the limb falls, now you got the arborist up in the tree getting hit repeatedly by that tree.
Yeah.
So
'Cause
that's how most injuries happen.
Because it's anchored at the top of the tree.
Yes.
And the tree's going to impulse and stretching it kind of like a slingshot.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's some interesting videos online where you see a guy he
The
looks
palm
like a
tree
rag
ones are
doll.
insane.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. So going back to the engineering, just because it's fascinating, like how you guys kind of did this. What is the limiting factor that you guys ran into that was like the hard part of designing this that you didn't see at the beginning?
Oh God. I
What
think
became like the
everything.
critical thing you're willing to share?
Well, there's a lot of challenges, and the current device we're working on is the device that has the fewest of these challenges.
Of course.
Right.
Yes.
So, we have a signal input from the eddy current, but if the tail end of the rope is really high in the air, that rope has weight, and you have to pull up. So that's actually another input
Right.
that's really hard to control.
Oh, interesting.
So we have to fight that, and
Yeah.
the rope needs to spin a sheave, so it's taking time to find a pulley or a sheave that will bite the rope and not slip. That's obviously very important.
And bite the rope and not break the rope.
break the rope exactly.
yeah.
That's another trick or another challenge. And then we can go back to like the beginning. Like I said, we've been working on this technology for a decade, and it's frustrating because I don't think a lot of investors understand. This technology didn't exist in this form. That's why we have like 3 patents on it. Eddy currents have been around forever, but the way we were implementing the eddy current in such a small device, that was the hardest thing because eddy current works better when you have a radius. I mean, it's in the equation. So when you take radius out of that equation, you have to do something else. You have to figure something else out that's going to add to the ability to lower a human.
Right. To increase torque.
Right.
That the eddy current's resisting, right?
Exactly.
The eddy current wants to resist torque at increasing rates and increasing speeds.
And
Yeah.
the goal is to lower a 100-pound person and a 300-pound person in a device that's 3 inches.
Without a user telling the device how heavy they are.
Exactly.
That's the hard part.
Exactly. And that's what took us forever. And we had some college students that was working on another device, and Ben, one of our engineers, another engineer, he graduated MIT, and he spent a month figuring out the math for that.
Yeah, we did an axial flux in eddy current instead of radial flux, which allowed us to package it a lot smaller and save a lot of weight.
It's amazing how that works, right? Like when
Yeah.
you can start pancaking those together, how much the force goes up
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
small size.
Yeah.
Have you seen Koenigsegg's new motor, I think? it makes like 800 horsepower and like 80 pounds or something
Oh,
stupid.
wow.
It is like the
Yeah.
crazy densest like electric motor
I'm
out
assuming
there.
that's only for like impulse. You
No,
can't
it's
sustain that.
It's sustaining.
Oh
it's
dear,
insane.
where's the heat going?
Yeah, their
Yeah.
cooling system's awesome.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, these college students, they told me this. The math is unreal. They said we couldn't find the math for any of this, and then Ben showed them the math, and they were these kids, and they were pretty bright. But I mean, they struggled because there's the field of eddy current isn't really a big. It's getting bigger now because you have these the braking technology, and like Tesla is the same principle. But it's not something that a lot of engineers are familiar with.
Well, and most engineers are really familiar with driving motors with electric flux.
Yes. Yeah.
No one is used to using it as a uncontrolled braking power.
Right.
Right. I have a motor controller that can PWM the current. Now I know how to control, slowing down a motor. Doing it with just a big metal plate absorbing that energy, that is a nonlinear equation.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is humans are so good at guessing math linearly. Oh, I think it's about twice as much. I know how thick to make this beam.
Right.
When things are nonlinear, our brains don't work that way.
No, they don't.
Well, and with this, I mean, like you get even the thickness of the metal. If it's too thin or too thick, there's a sweet spot.
For efficiency. Yeah.
Right. And then speed, the RPMs, there's an RPM that the thing really works well at.
And if you use different magnets, that speed changes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's all
Any change changes everything.
and it's not linear. It's not like if you get half
No.
as strong a magnet, you need to spin it half as fast. It's nonlinear. It's a point you could have never guessed.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's very counterintuitive. And so that was very frustrating for me because we would raise this money. I had this vision of a world I knew existed, and spent 10 years telling people this existed. And it took us 10 years to get to that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we got it. But, investors, they want to see stuff right away.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
return on
yeah.
investment's tough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I understand that. Like, nobody wants to say, yeah, here's my money. I'll wait 10 years.
Yeah, to get my return.
Yeah, let's see what happens.
I suppose that's the advantage too, though. Like now you guys have effectively built the house and the foundation. So going and building the add-on to the house or the new garage is now significantly
Exactly.
easier as opposed to going back and starting from zero. And the next product's going to take us another decade to build.
Exactly. I have a feeling it'd be funny if we got out of this without getting any like Series A round. Like we just because we've been doing this so long that we'll hit market. And then it's going to pay for the rest of it because we know a lot more now than, if we would just started this, going into each different product line. It makes it a lot easier.
Well, it's amazing what tribal knowledge will do, right? It's not like what you've learned today couldn't fit on 1 or 2 pages of paper, but there is no one book to go read 500 pages and get this 1 page of knowledge you needed.
No.
That's what's hard in when you're doing it in a new application. Yes, I can go look up the eddy current physics in a book. They've been well understood forever.
Right.
But how do I set up that physics to make a product that delights users and meets all of my user needs?
Right.
That's something that you have to drive by braille, right? Bounce off the guardrails with your car. I'm like, oh, well, that's too much this way. That's too heavy this way. Like, how do we find this balance? But once you get it, once you understand how your technology puzzle pieces, I think is the right word, into a market, now you can go look at a different hole in a different market. Like, I know how to cut that puzzle piece using my technology.
Right. I'm glad you said that because that was my exact experience. I've 10 years ago, I just started reading. At one point, I was reading 3 books a week because, during high school and college, I didn't really read that much. I was like a B+ student. For me to get an A, I had to kind of study a little bit. But I was like, I just kind of skirted corners. I did well, but when I started doing this, what I like is it forced me. I now wanted to read because I needed this information. I wasn't reading for pleasure. I was reading to learn, and I felt like I was learning through a fire hose. Because for this type of technology that we did, there wasn't really a roadmap. All the books I read, there was no one that. Tesla, that's a great example, but I'm not Elon Musk, I'm not that smart. But, I couldn't find anybody that did this type of, invented a technology, put it in a package, and then sold it. So none of the books told me how to do that.
It really is a game of just you have to almost build your own map.
Yeah.
And then find, you have the dot on the map where you're trying to go. and then you have to like consume enough information where you can start to see, okay, there's a mountain there, there's a river there,
Yes.
and then eventually you figure out the right way to go. But it absolutely is a journey just like that.
Yeah.
And you got to choose: do you want to build a boat? Do you want to climb a mountain? Like,
That's right.
Do you think you're good enough at geography to chart that pass that you can just walk through? Because no one finds the pass. Just saying that out loud.
Right.
And that's the cool thing about the startup world. I've had so many people, so many advisors that have helped me just tremendously. And I would say that to anybody that's going into startup. You have to find people. You're not going to do it alone. And I knew that in the beginning. I was like, what I'm trying to tackle is way above my pay grade.
Well, and my favorite story is your next one will be so much easier.
Yeah.
No, and this is what's crazy is the younger founders, like the early founders, this is their first rodeo. It's all new and exciting, and you're full of piss and vinegar, and you'll literally run through brick walls. And it always takes longer, and it's a little rougher, but you'll do things other people won't try.
That's right.
In your second or third or fourth startup, you are smarter, and you're more cautious, and you know where the stove is hot and where not to touch it. And what happens is you have a higher success rate, but you usually don't chase as big of moonshots the
That's
second, third,
right.
and fourth time.
That's
so
the
it
lesson.
it takes the balance of betting on the young founder that has no idea what they're doing,
Right.
because they're the only blind squirrels that are going to find the unicorn thing.
Yeah.
Right.
They're the only ones dumb enough to do the thing that no one's even touched with a 10-foot pole that has huge untapped opportunity. And then when you get the experienced founders that are second, third, or fourth thing, you're like, I'm going to definitely give him a buck because he'll turn into 4, but he might not turn into 100.
Right. And I think that's what I had going for me. Even at my age, I had the energy of a 19, 20-year-old.
Yeah.
And like just went nonstop for 10 years. And I'd also caution people about that too. You got to make sure you don't burn out.
Sprinting the marathon is hard.
Yes, and that's exactly what I did. And then it's funny, like you said, trying things that most people wouldn't. I mean, like when we were in DAP, we go to the 6th floor stairwell and we would jump our device down to the ground floor. You know, like we'd set up ropes. We didn't ask for permission. You know.
And wait, and you would strap yourself into it?
Yeah, and we would jump. That's how we tested the device.
Not a bag of
Yeah,
sand.
no. It's like, hey, Patrick, I got you, man. You know, but I mean, it was funny. One day, the dean of the college was walking there. He's like, guys, I don't think this is a good idea, and I don't even know if legally we're allowed to let you do this. So, so we had to change locations to the climbing gym. But yeah, I mean, we literally. We would ask for forgiveness, not permission, and that's how we did everything. And and to me, that's fun. You know, that's
Well, it's exciting, and it's the thing that will allow you to explore space that no one else did.
that's right.
You will try the thing with so little resources and so little knowledge, or knowledge or promise that it's on the other side, that
Yeah.
you have conviction that it should be.
Yeah, I was too dumb to know that this isn't probably feasible.
Yeah, well, and that your first $5,000 was a drop in the bucket compared to what you're going to have to take to get there.
That's right.
We had one of our very first podcast episodes years ago when it was called the Glass Labs Podcast. We had one of our clients on that did a bike computer. And it is, it basically a smartphone. Effectively, it's a smartphone for your bike, but it's an Android-powered GPS, measures your power, does all these things. And we asked one of the founders, Lawrence, I'm like, Lawrence, would you do this again? Like, this is, you've launched a successful company.
That's the best
you did this
question.
thing. Would you do it again? He goes, I would never do this again unless I had $2 million cash to start. And I think their first raise like $200,000. And they thought they were like really going to get somewhere with it.
We're rich.
And he's like, not unless I had $2 million. Like, that's the difference between experience and first-time
That's
founders.
exactly right.
And
Yeah.
I love that both are valid. We
Yeah.
have to have first-time founders to go do crazy. And we need experienced founders to do the wash, rinse, repeat, like sustainable startup practices.
Right.
Because you need those to feed the VC engine at your singles and doubles instead of your home runs. To have enough cream at the top that you can bet on by
That's
1 in
right.
100 home run.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome.
Michael, one of the questions I always love to ask at the end is if you had advice for either a younger you or a founder that was up and coming in the hard tech space, building a product that may be novel to the world that they're wanting to bring into it, what would be your advice to them?
Watch out for your mental health. This is something that people don't talk about, but a lot of startups, they go through what you have to go through to do this. It's very difficult, and if you're not watching your mental health, watching for burnout, making sure you're not burning your people out, you might get to the top and realize you aren't the person that you were when you started, and not necessarily for the better.
Well, and I want to dig into this because everyone talks about burnout. No one actually talks about burnout.
Yeah.
So I'm a founder. I've done startups that were insane. I've done Glassboard that's more of a small business that we bootstrapped. I've done a little bit of everything, and I've experienced burnout in more than one way.
Yeah.
There's the what I call like acute burnout, which is like you and your team and your very exciting early startup, and you're working 15-hour days, 7 days a week for 6 months, and everyone's just getting physically tired. People are getting sick. People are burning out. People are just angry at each other all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And you get like the grumpy burnout.
That's right.
There's the apathetic burnout that'll happen slowly without what I'm going to call the right balance.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And this isn't just work-life balance, like make sure you go to the movies.
Right.
This is like joy and work balance, right? Making sure that the company is moving forward at the rate that gives you return. And not financial return, like brings you joy in what your problems you're solving, things you're doing, at the rate at which you're pouring into it. You can sustain high rate input if you get high rate output almost forever. I've seen people work insane hours for years because it fueled their fire.
That's exactly right.
It was the cup that filled them up, not the one that drained them.
That's right.
And so what has your experience been?
Well, it's about 3 years ago, I hit a rough patch where we were out of money, and what stresses me as a founder is I couldn't pay my people.
Yep.
It wasn't me. It's the fact I couldn't pay them. So I wasn't making any money. They weren't getting any money. And what blew my mind is they kept working.
But almost made you feel more guilty.
Yeah. I was like, man, these guys are literally working with no pay, and they love it. I mean, they at one point they said, this is our project.
Yeah.
And I love that. Because that's the way when I was in the military, I was put in charge. That's how I led. I never would give orders to people. I learned you get a lot more out of people if they're doing what they love doing.
And they're doing it as a team.
Yes. And my job almost is to tell them, hey, you need to slow down a little bit. I had one guy with us, part of our team. He locked himself in his room for 3 days and worked nonstop, and then got sick. And I was like, don't ever do that again. Man, we got to look out for each other. So that's the other thing I would say. Make sure you're looking out for yourself and the people that are with you, because it's not easy. That's why most people don't do it. It's a lot easier to go get a job 9 to 5 with a guaranteed paycheck. It's a lot harder to bet on a technology that you are creating with no pay.
Yeah, well, it's one of the things I'll work 80 hours a week for myself to avoid working 40 for someone else.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But no, I think that your last comment on burnout is the one I really want to highlight for the listeners that are young founders or doing this for the first or third or fifth time and starting to figure out why they're so angry and stressed all the time. Make sure someone else is giving you feedback on if they think you're burning out.
Yes.
It's really hard to self-diagnose. It's actually pretty easy to see in someone else.
Yes.
So that is like the accountability system is pretty important in that. Like I've got some really great co-founders, and we're horrible to each other all the time, which helps keep it pretty even. That if I'm pushing myself too hard, Drew will literally call it. He goes, "The roller coaster's getting to the tippy top again, Grant." I'm like, "Okay, I know.
It's time to back off.
We're about to go down." And it's really good that we just call each other out.
That's
right?
good.
And that's how we've dealt with that. But I've definitely seen even Drew and I through our ups and downs and trials and tribulations touch the burnout sun.
Yes.
Melt our wax wings and start falling, and luckily there's usually the other one there to pick us up before we, luckily belay us down before we hit the ground at full velocity.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. No, that's good.
Oh man, well that's a great. I think that was one of our most impactful final questions. That's
Sure.
awesome.
No, I think it by far lean on the team, avoid burnout, and talk to customers. That's one of the biggest things I took away from this conversation is that you guys are building a product that people want because you kicked off the journey figuring out new technology. And so that's a little bit of did they create a hammer or a nail? But the thing that you guys really did that was like by far the most innovative thing was even if you guys experienced friction in the sales process through getting the certifications and said, hey, how can we go find the right application for the right customer, taking it directly to them, getting it in their hands and getting feedback. And that's like the story of Hardtech.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
Everybody, this is the Hardtech Podcast. I'm your host, DeAndre Harakas, with my co-host, Grant Chapman.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Michael, Alex, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure.